All right, so a few weeks ago, I was looking through an old box of pictures trying to find a particular picture that I hope I still had, and lo and behold, I did find it, and here it is. I'm go ahead and bring it up to the camera. So this picture was taken in about 1981, and I believe I was 8th grade at that time, junior high. And this is a picture of our family dog, Felix, at the time, who's no longer with us. And it's also a picture of the first RC airplane that I built from a kit. That plane is also the first RC airplane that I crashed. So if you look at this picture, actually if you look at the model itself, you may think, well, I did a pretty good job on that for a kid in 8th grade. But one thing I kind of wanted to point out is, like a lot of people probably from my generation, and I'm sure there's many of us out there, is that we built plastic models. When we were growing up, we built plastic models. All of my friends and my cousins, we all, at one time or another, we probably had a train layout. And like I said, we all built plastic models. I go to my friend's house and everybody had, a plane hanging from the ceiling. They had tanks on the shelves. They had cars, all this kind of stuff. It was just a pretty common hobby to build kits back then. As I got a little bit older, I got into the stick and tissue kits. This is a Gillows kit, which I've mentioned these kind of before. And I started building these as I got a little bit older, and I started kind of building these and flying these little stick and tissue kits. Now, it's not that big of a leap or big of a jump to move from a stick and tissue kit like this to an RC airplane. The construction methods are there are a lot of differences, and RC airplanes are more complicated, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities. So it was sort of a natural progression for me to move from building plastic models to building stick and tissue planes like this and flying these rubber band powered planes at the park or at the schoolyard, to control line, and then eventually RC airplanes. So I mentioned that this was the first plane that I crashed, and for some reason, I was a kid, I remember taking this airplane I built it, and I took it with my friend David at the time. We went back behind a building that they just recently constructed. There was sort of like a big alley parking lot area behind it. And for some reason, being, just kind of being young and dumb, I thought, well, if these things fly, surely this will fly without a lot of effort. And I thought that I could just go ahead and build this kit and build this plane and let it go, and I would just be able to fly it. Well, that was not the case. This was just a 2-channel, and it had an 049 engine, and it was a 1/2 A class size airplane. And basically what I did is, I remember going with David, and we set it up, and we got it running, and I let it go, and it went kind of screaming down on the ground. And I remember it got up into the air, and all I remember is that it probably got about 10 feet up in the air. It just kind of went up, and then it did what I now think about is kind of just doing like a tip stall. It basically went up and flipped over, and it got destroyed. And that was the first experience I had trying to fly an RC airplane. With my friends and my cousins during when we were first learning, we were just kind of doing it on our own. So it was a lot of trial and error. But then, I kept trying it, and eventually I was able to kind of pick it up, and here I am today. Now, I haven't been flying and building planes continuously since that time. I took some time off and got back into the hobby. I think probably, like I mentioned, probably a lot of people have similar histories. When I see comments on my channel, a lot of people do mention that they built kits and they flew in the past, and now they're back into it. So that's really cool. The other thing I wanted to show you is, this was my first radio, that I used for that plane, and it was a 2-channel Futaba, and I got it at my local hobby store. I probably was cutting grass or whatever to earn enough money to buy this thing, and it's a pretty simple, just 2-channel radio. It actually has a little lever on here. So like if this is, you can use it as, you can actually pull this down, this lever down like that, and it will set this so you can actually use it as a throttle. You know, if you're kind of, probably if you could use this like to drive RC cars and stuff, but you can do that to it. Of course, it has a kind of simple trim levers on it and such. A very simple, cheap radio. Back then it wasn't cheap, at least not for me, but yeah, it worked out pretty well. And actually I learned how to fly on this, because eventually what happened is I gave up trying. For some reason I just thought, okay, I can go ahead and build this kit the way like I showed you there, and then I would be able to build another one and try it. And I did that a few times and it just didn't work out. And eventually my cousin and a friend of mine rediscovered gliders, and we built gliders and we tried those out, and that was kind of how we learned how to fly. Gliders were a little bit more forgiving for us. We went up to some local hills and we were able to pick up and learn how to fly gliders on our own, and then we moved back to the powered RC planes and such. Okay, so if that little story didn't put you to sleep or bore you or pique your interest, hopefully this will. And what this is, so if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I like to look for, you know, vintage planes on eBay, and I like to pick up planes when I can if they're a good deal on them. And I was able to actually find the first plane that I built on eBay, and I was able to purchase it. And I have it here in this box. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and I'm going to show you what it is. Okay, well, before I open this up, I would like to comment on something. So once in a while I get a comment from people, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing negative about these comments, but people ask, like, why review or look at an old kit, an old vintage kit that is no longer available, that is hard to find, that may have some kind of damage or missing parts? You know, why do that? And my simple answer is just because I find it interesting, and it's part of my love for the hobby, is kind of looking at some of these old kits and sometimes purchasing them, and especially ones that maybe I have like a history with, like this one right here. So, you know, I understand that you're not going to be able to go out and everybody buy this kit tomorrow, you know, online. If you're interested in this particular one, it's something that you can look for and come across on eBay. And they're still out there, but they're just not very many of them. But that doesn't matter. If the idea is that if you like building RC planes and you like the vintage kits and such, you may find a kit or a plane that you like, or something that you built when you were earlier in the hobby that you thought you would, maybe if you can find it again and build it, it would be fun for you. So it's just sort of that thing. It's just kind of like sharing it and looking at it. And I always like looking at the old kits and looking at the old instructions and kind of how things were done. I think it's interesting, and I do think a lot of people do like to kind of look at that and kind of share it with each other. So hopefully that answers some of those questions. And you know, it's just something that I like to do, and I'm sharing it with everybody on my channel. So let's go ahead and open this thing up here. So you know, when you buy things, I understand when you buy things on eBay, you're kind of trusting people, but I think I've mentioned it before. Usually when I'm dealing with people that are selling kits like this, they have that kind of similar background, and a lot of times they're happy to sell them if they know other people are going to get some use out of them. So that's kind of been my experience. Generally, people are pretty nice, and I think everybody's pretty trustworthy that I've encountered. Okay. And there it is. All right, this is the old Sterling Models Piper Tri-Pacer, 44-inch wingspan, 1.5 to 1 foot for the scale, 049 to 0.1 engine. Now it looks like it's in really good shape. Move the box out of here. So this is just a beautiful looking little airplane. So what does it say here on the box? If I can bring it up here, it says 2 to 4 channel, die cut balsa parts, vacuum form parts, hardware, detail plans, and instructions. Yeah, so this one you can go ahead and set it up as a 2-channel, which would be just basically your elevator and your rudder. And you can, or you can do a 4-channel, which obviously would be throttle, and I think you can cut in and put ailerons on it, which I would do. So let's go ahead and open it up. Yeah, the box looks like it's in really good shape. Okay. So we'll go ahead and remove some of this packing material. What I do is when I purchase these kits, I always request from the seller that they pack additional material inside the boxes to help prevent damage when it's being transported. So I'll ask them to, crumple up some newspaper or put something in there, hopefully keep things nice and secure. So let me go ahead and get all this stuff out of here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and look through some of the parts. So this is sort of like the you cut the windscreen out of this material here. I don't know if it's got plastic on it. I think it's hard to tell. It's kind of yellow. Could just be yellow because it's old. That could be replaced. Here are the plans. Put this off to the side up here. Here's some original information. Of course, here are the decals. They look pretty decent. They're a little yellowed. Now, I know that they're probably a little bit damaged too. I don't know if I would use these. If they are I may try to, you can try to get new ones made or look for other ones. Possibly be able to print your own. I've heard that you can take your decals like this and set them out like in a sunny window, and they'll kind of bleach them and get rid of the yellow. But I'm not too concerned about that. There's old Sterling decal down there. There's an old hardware set. There's some hinges. There's some hardwood block material, probably for the mounting of the engine. These pieces look like they could be ailerons, or at least trailing edge pieces. Well, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. Here's the front cowl, and this goes underneath. This is underneath the cowl. I think that's like an intake or something. That's pretty solid, but that's in good shape. You could find also, one of my favorite sites is it's called Outer Zone, and it's out of the UK. And you can look on there, and you can actually find the plans are posted, and they actually have the templates to cut all the pieces. The only thing missing would be the cowls. You'd have to kind of make your own cowl, which I think you could do out of wood if you're a little bit kind of worked on it. You could probably make one look pretty good. It's a great website because you don't have to sign up for anything. All you got to do is look for whatever plane you're looking for, or go search in it and just push download. There's like a list of PDFs that come for that particular airplane kit, and it'll include the original plans. It'll include templates. It'll include, sometimes they include little articles and reviews. So there's a lot of information. So check out, if you're interested in building vintage kits and you can't maybe find a kit available, go to Outer Zone, and you may be able to find the plans and the templates to kind of just build it yourself out of just go buy the wood and do it that way. I'm gonna try to keep this somewhat organized. But yeah, these are all die cut. Nowadays everything's laser cut, but this is in really good shape. There's numbering on all the parts. Looks like a couple of the ribs may have fallen out right there. Hopefully those are in the box somewhere. And I don't expect these kits, when I buy a vintage kit like this, I don't expect it to be in perfect shape. I try to get it in perfect shape, and I try to see, but if it comes and there's a little bit of damage here and there, or a few little parts that I have to replace, that's not the end of the world for me, but yeah, you can kind of see. So it looks like this kit obviously has never been really opened up. Probably these wires, the wire landing gear, and here's the nose gear, looks like, and some of the pieces have been jostled around because you do see little bits like this that are kind of broken off, but I don't think that's a big deal. And this looks like it's probably for installing these like landing gear block material. Cut this up and plug the landing gear wire into that. I'm just trying to pull out some of this. Yeah, so here's a couple of those ribs that probably came off of this piece here. Yeah, like these guys right there. So then here's some more sheeting material. There's a little bag of something in here. Little bag of hardware. Yeah, some control horns and some little brackets that are used to hold down the landing gear wire. And down here there's some spars and some stringers. More wire. Probably for the control rods. So, okay. So yeah, this kit looks pretty nice. It's definitely, it's an old kit obviously, but it's in really good shape. So I'm going to put these parts back in and we'll take a look at the plans. All right, so I'm not sure how big these are. I'm hoping I can look at them on this table here. I may be too small. So I went ahead and I laid the plan out on the ground here under a piece of cardboard, and it's a double-sided sheet. And of course, this looks like it's the this looks like it's the I guess the title sheet with the fuselage construction. So let's go ahead and take a look down here at the kind of the bottom here, and we can see that of course it's the Piper Tri-Pacer. You know, I don't know what year. I have to do a little bit of research, but I think the Piper was built back like in maybe the 50s. Somewhere around then, and I don't know when this kit actually came out, so I'm going to have to look at that also. So again, of course, it's a 049 to 0.10 or 0.10 engine. I would put a 0.1 on it just because I think it needs that power. Here's the Sterling Models logo, and then down in this section down here, it's kind of faint, but it's the actual specifications for the plane, kind of the scale details. Pretty cool. Kind of come over here, it shows, let's see, it has the actual, tells you the size of the engine, the original wingspan, and everything else like that. So you can kind of check the scale off of that. Really nice details. Then over in this corner, we can just kind of see that windshield pattern. Like I mentioned before, you have to cut your own windshield. And a couple pictures up here of the actual, that's the real airplane there, I believe. Yeah, real airplane there. Here's the model. It has a pretty heavy dihedral, which I think I would reduce because you have the ailerons, so I don't think you need that big of a dihedral, but I would check that. And then up here in the top left corner, it starts with the instructions for the fuselage, and then of course it's showing you kind of build like the center section. It's kind of like a keel almost. You build that center section, and then you build up one side at a time. You put the bulkheads or the formers on one side of the fuselage, put the stringers on and everything, and then you flip it over and do the same on the other side. There's the landing gear blocks being placed. Some more details about where the wing is going to connect and some of the sheeting in the front. And of course, here's the landing gear going on. I think I would try to put a steerable front landing gear on that if I could. Back up here is that center frame section that you would build on right there. Here's some details. They call it the final assembly. Maybe this is actually, maybe this isn't the cover sheet. Maybe the wing is. Some more instructions. So there's no pamphlet or instruction manual. Everything is on these sheets. Here's a little cross section of a typical bulkhead. Here's a little instrument panel you can cut out and put on there. And of course, here's the rudder and the elevator. It even has like a little skid. That's kind of cool. It's got a lot of detail features. This is a pretty detailed, scaled airplane. Of course, up here they're showing, looks like it's a side mount, probably the 049 in there. They don't show, okay, like right here would be the radio. There's the servo shown there, or a servo shown right here. And then they're showing control rods, probably constructed out of wood. Right up here is a little nose gear detail. And it's got those engine mount beams, which are indicating that it would be a side mount. All right, let's go ahead and flip this over. Check out the wing side. Okay, well here's the wing side of the plan. And you get another picture down here of the Piper Tri-Pacer. It's kind of funny. You can actually find that picture online pretty easily. There's lots of pictures of the plane. What's kind of interesting is, like, back in this time, these planes were sort of, it was kind of like they were marketing these planes like the Piper Cub and such, and this plane sort of like to be like family planes. It was almost like there was this idea that every family would kind of own an airplane. And as kind of shown by this picture here, looks like a little family going out on vacation or something. Dad's over there getting ready to throw some luggage in. Mom and the kids are probably, hating the moment, thinking we don't want to get in that plane with Dad. All right, and then down here there's a control line option. There's the wing strut. Let's go ahead and look at some of the instructions for the wing construction. So of course there's two panels. There's a left and right wing panel. And typical construction's got a spar, and got the main spar and up in here, and the ribs. It does have the aileron. Probably what I did back when I built mine is I probably just glued that in place. Well, I must have glued it in place because I didn't use the ailerons. And then there's, of course, these two sections, and then there's the center section, which starts the construction of the wing shown here. And of course that nice details. All right, down here is kind of the first step in constructing the wing panels, showing the wing tips and the leading edge and the trailing edge, and the main spar with the ribs going in. And down here it's got the aileron and the sheeting going on. And here's sort of the final assembly of the wing, showing the dihedral again at I think it's 1 and a, what does it say, 1 3/4 inch dihedral on both sides. That's a pretty strong dihedral, like I mentioned. I don't know if I would put that much into it. Okay, so it's not clear to me right now, but I think the wing plugs in. You can kind of see those little dowels kind of up here in the front. Those little dowels, I think they plug into the bulkhead in front, up on top of the cockpit, and then the wing attaches with, I think, with some screws. Flip it over here. Oh yeah, so there's a nylon screw there, and then it must plug in right back in there. So looking at this front nose wheel up here, it's designed to be just kind of stiff and plugs into when the bulkhead attaches up in here. I definitely would want to try to make this a steerable nose gear. I like to have that option to be able to taxi around and such on the ground. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed kind of looking at this kit with me and checking it out. Hopefully it was interesting. And yeah, thanks for kind of hanging in there with me on this and listening to me babble about all this kind of stuff and my early experiences flying planes. And I will encourage you, if you're interested in building in vintage kits, check out what's available on places like eBay. Check out plan sites like I mentioned, like Outer Zone, and you should be able to find something that interests you, and it'd be a lot of fun to build. So please do check it out if you're interested. So yeah, I'm happy that I was able to get this kit, and I plan on building it. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but it's definitely going to build it one of these days. And you know, unfortunately, can't get old Felix back, but we have our fond memories of him. He was a great old dog. So that's it. Thanks for watching my channel. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.